Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Christopher. I was gonna say it's Christopher Reeve. What's up, y'all? It's Bill the Universe. I'm gonna do the chart of Christopher Reeve because I've known about him since I was a little boy. I'm 38 years old, 37 years old. So when I was a kid in the 90s, the original Superman was only about 20 years old, 20, 30 years old. And my mom was still in love with him. She was like, "Oh my God, Superman's on!" I just remember her loving him, and I saw a video of a movie of his recently called "Somewhere in Time," and I'm just looking at him. I'm just like, "Oh my God, what a handsome man! What a looker!" I mean, he is just a stud. Oh my goodness. So, and so I finished the movie, and what really got me, and I was thinking about, I wonder if he's Stravana, or I wonder if he has this in his chart. I was thinking about that the whole time. But honestly, what really got me wanting to look at his chart for real was the very last scene of Somewhere in Time where he's paralyzed. He's not paralyzed, but he is in a paralytic state where he basically dies. So it's kind of true. He is in like in a paralytic state. Um, and so that made me very curious because he was paralyzed the last 20 years of his life. So that really did spark an interest. So I looked at his chart, and I saw a lot of interesting things in his chart. First thing I want to say is that, do you see how in the beginning of this video he's playing the piano? He's a Jeshta moon, and he's a Jeshta Mars. Bach has his Mars in Jeshta. What's his? Elton John is a Jeshta ascendant. Carole King is a Jeshta moon. Lady Gaga has her Neptune in Jeshta. Let's see. Britney Spears has her Sun in Jeshta. If you haven't noticed, what all this is connecting to is that they all play piano. Um, Debussy was a Jeshta Rahu. I'm a piano teacher. I'm originally a piano player. I'm a pianist, and I'm a Jeshta ascendant. So Jeshta has so it just loves the piano. Jeshta is actually the star of Antares, and it's in the heart of Scorpio. So he's a Scorpio moon, which is really interesting to me. But it's very interesting that all these piano players have Jeshta very strong in their chart. I thought that was really interesting. There's even more. I just can't think of it right now. Oh, Alicia Keys is a Jeshta. Oh, What is she? What is she? What is she? She's not Jeshta. She might be Jeshta ascendant. She's not Jeshta moon. Mars, Mercury, Venus. She might be Jeshta Mercury actually, but anyway, regardless, there's so many piano players that have Jeshta in their chart, and when I saw that he had Moon and Mars in Jeshta, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because he's such a good fighter. Because Jeshta is Scorpio, and Scorpio is fighting, so it definitely made sense. But then I was thinking very passively. I was like, "Oh, I wonder if he ever played the piano." And so I downloaded this video because it has a lot of clips of him being sexy and working out, but I didn't realize till editing the video that the first minute is of him playing the piano, and I was like, oh shit, there's the Jeshta in him. He's a piano player, and Jeshta being ruled by Mercury also rules over the hands. It also rules over writing. So I wonder if he actually had a very very good hand-eye coordination. If I wonder if he was a writer himself. I wonder if he was a very actually like learned person, a very because Mercury is the child, so it's like a very learned, very curious about everything, very multi-talented, likes to do everything, has a very fertile imagination, a very fertile um, uh, um, curiosity. So the other thing I noticed, and I hate to sound disrespectful to him, but I actually know the placements that indicate a big penis in a man's chart, and he has two placements. One is he has his Mars in Jeshta. Jeshta, for some reason, Mars and Jeshta. I mean, Mars is in his own sign here in Scorpio, but that doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't really necessarily mean much when it comes to penis size. But Mars and Jasha was a big indicator, and the other big indicator was Saturn in Hasta, which is a star in Virgo. So he has his Saturn in Hasta. Both of these planets work really well for him as a disciplined person because Saturn likes to be very disciplined, and Virgo, being an Earth sign, Saturn is very Earth oriented because it's very disciplined, and so is Virgo because Virgo is the sixth house of hard work, of going to school, of going to work, fighting diseases. It's the hospital, it's the school. So sixth house Virgo energy is completely about making this earth better, and so is Saturn. So he has strong placements as far as being a really good hard worker. But I'm just letting you know, ladies. I mean, he has two big penis placements. But honestly, honestly, I didn't need to look at his chart to tell that. I mean, I just, I was looking at that movie, Lost Somewhere in Time, and I just thought he had some really nice pants. And then I looked up his Superman suit. Ladies, look it up. Look up Christopher Reeve's Superman suit. You'll thank me later. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. His Rahu. Okay, so his Rahu is in Dhanishta. Dhanishta is a fighter. Dhanishta is a star within Capricorn. It's half Capricorn, half Aquarius, and it's ruled by Mars. So his Rahu is ruled by Mars. So Mars is a fighter. Mars is a warrior, and so Rahu is what you desire to be the most. So this would have meant that he had a great desire to be a champion. There's a lot of boxers and fighters who are Dhanishta. So that really, Michael B. Jordan, he is a Dhanishta sun or moon, and so is Sylvester Stallone. There's a lot of military people that are fucking Dhanishta, and also Dhanishta endows one with great beauty. So what's her name? Marilyn Monroe was a Dhanishta moon. Sidney Crawford is a Dhanishta moon. Christopher Reeve is a Rahu Dhanishta. So, and also because it's Capricorn, his part of Dhanishta is in Capricorn. You already know Capricorn is the GOAT, right? Capricorn is the executive. Capricorn is the top of the mountain, is the boss. Capricorn is Superman. So he definitely achieved his Rahu. But you have to be careful about achieving your Rahu. Because what happens is sometimes you pay a deathly price, where a lot of times you're so close to death where you almost actually die. Some people actually do die from their Rahu. So I remember when I was chasing my Rahu in my early 20s, that's the I've been held at gunpoint. Like, I've actually been in for real danger. But for some reason, I felt like that time when I was chasing my Rahu in my early 20s, that was the time I was actually closest to death, which is very interesting. And the reason I say that is because he did achieve his Rahu. He literally was the Superman. He was the executive, but he's an Aslesha ascendant. And according to Claire Nakti, she made a big deal a big theme out of this in her Aslesha video. And if you haven't seen it, it's pretty good. It's called Aslesha Claire Nakti, and it's a whole hour and a half video on Aslesha Nakshatra. But she points out how a lot of these men, not even really the women, but a lot of men who are Aslesha natives, they tend to be paralyzed. They either in movies or in different forms of art, but you see how Christopher Reeve was an Aslesha ascendant, and he was paralyzed. So that kind of even further validates the theme of paralyzation for men when it comes to Aslesha Nakshatra. Aslesha is a star in the constellation of Cancer, so he's a Cancer ascendant. So he's a fourth house chart ruler because Cancer is fourth house. And he actually has his Venus in the fourth house. So when you're a Cancer ascendant, it can make you very beautiful, very, very, very beautiful. So Shawn Mendes is an Aslesha's son. Tom Brady is an Aslesha's son. Chris Hemsworth is an Aslesha's son. And then he has his Venus in the fourth house. So, Aslasha being Cancer, and then Cancer ruling the fourth house, and his Venus is in his fourth house. There's just so many beauty placements here. So this makes sense why he's such a beautiful man. Um, but Aslasha for men can also mean Aslasha, mythically is tied to the guardian of the doorway to Hades, so to the underworld. And so the guardian is always a big, strong, burly guy, which is, I mean, Aslasha is like what's it called when you guard the door at the club? Um, the fucking security guard. I forget the word for it. But it's like that. It's like the cosmic security guard. They're big, they're brawly, and they're really good at sports, and they're good at violence. They're actually really good at destroying. So like I said, Tom Brady, who is, an incredibly successful football player, one of the best. He is an Aslasha descendant, and then Chris Hemsworth, the blonde guy who plays Thor, is also an Aslasha son. And what's interesting is that Chris Hemsworth, I think he said he's like susceptible to Alzheimer's or something like that, some geriatric disease, which also is incredibly debilitating. And yes, people who are in their late stages of Alzheimer's and stages of whatever geriatric disease he said he has, they do eventually get into a paralytic state. You can get when you have advanced dementia or advanced what's it called, Alzheimer's. You can get to a point where you're just catatonic. You just don't move. You can barely even talk, barely even swallow. So Aslasha really seems to debilitate men in that way. His son. Oh yeah, his sun and his Mercury being in the third house, which is Gemini, being in the third house plus being an Aslasha ascendant, I'm really, really inclined to think that he's a writer. Like I already said, Moon. Like I already said, Venus in the fourth house makes him very beautiful. Anything that any planet in the fourth house can make you a beautiful person, especially if the nakshatra is a beautiful nakshatra like Cancer, because Cancer is the mother, or Virgo, or something ruled by Venus, something like that, or actual Venus. So, for example, RuPaul has Venus and Rahu in the fourth house. Now, RuPaul is a man. I'm not sure how. I mean, he's a handsome guy, but he's not like known for his beauty. But what's interesting is that he does make a very beautiful woman. So RuPaul might be an average looking man, but because he has his Rahu and Venus in the fourth house, it makes him obsessed with beauty. And Rahu is all about casting illusions and creating illusion. And he's a drag queen, right? So, like I said, no matter, and he makes a very beautiful woman. So, like I said, anything to do with fourth house, it really accentuates the beauty. Um, so like I said, his moon and Mars is in Jeshta, which makes sense that he's a piano player. Again, I have to emphasize the writing. He could have been a great writer. What's also interesting is that David Corenswet, the guy who's going to be the new Superman, is also has his 10th house in Jeshta, which is very, very interesting. So Christopher Reeve has his moon and Mars in the 5th house in Scorpio. But the 5th house itself is Leo. So he's got 2 Scorpio planets sitting in the 5th house of Leo. So that's a mixture of Leo and Scorpio. What I've noticed about Leo is you get sudden attacks, sudden something. 9/11 happened during Porva Falguni, which is Leo, and Venus is violence. And, and when Venus goes after something, when Venus decides to attack it, it's not used to losing. Venus is used to winning. So, for 9/11 to happen on Porva Falguni, which is Leo, but Porva Falguni itself is ruled by Venus, that means whoever attacked us, that was a victory for them, because Venus likes to win. But anyway, I kind of digress. Anyway, the point is, when you mix in Leo and Scorpio, that can mean sudden death or it can mean sudden attack of the body. So it does make sense that, he achieved his Rahu, but then you have to pay a price for achieving your Rahu. And then his Aslasha ascendant already, it makes him prone to being paralyzed. So the fact that he has Moon and and Mars, which is the sign of death, uh, mixed together, that can mean sudden death or sudden attack or sudden life peril, So I think that's very, very, very interesting. Um, Moon and Mars in the fifth, passion for. Oh yeah, but Moon and Mars in the fifth because it is Leo. Leo is very sexual. Leo is very artistic, very proud. So these people do have a passion for the arts, and they're really, really good parents. One more thing about that whole Leo and Scorpio equaling sudden death or a surprise attack or something like that. Another example would be Louis Tomlinson. His younger sister died in a car crash, which is a sudden death, right? Mercury, I'm pretty sure it's his Mercury. His Mercury or Mars, I forget which one. But both of those planets can represent siblings. And one of those was in Jeshta, this very, very sign that I keep mentioning. So, and then his sister did pass away in a car accident. So Jeshta can most definitely represent death, especially when you're associating it with Leo. But the last thing I would like to talk about is his is his Jupiter in the 10th house in Kritika. Kritika is a nakshatra in the constellation of Taurus. I was actually looking at Kritika the other day. I was walking, I was taking the trash out, and it was nighttime, and I live in the countryside, so it's the sky is very clear, and I saw a faint group of stars, and I was like, I bet that's Kritika, and I looked, and it was Kritika. So Kritika is very manly. The nakshatra of Kritika is ruled by the sun, and in Jyotisha, the sun is the most masculine placement, the most masculine planet, while the moon is the most feminine. So he has Jupiter in the 10th house. The 10th house is how people see you. It's not. It's the first house is your body, but the 10th house is what the public sees when they see you. And so he has his Jupiter in the 10th house. Jupiter is the planet of the father. It's a male planet, and it's a sattvic planet. Sattvic meaning spiritual, high-minded, high ideals, soft, generous. So even though it's a male planet, it's not it's not aggressive and violent like Mars, which is a male planet as well. This is a nice man. So Jupiter is a man because it's a male planet, but it's a spiritual, nice man. He's an evolved man. He is a kind man. He's a giving man. He sometimes he even gets run over because these people would rather not fight, which is interesting because he has a lot of fight in his chart. He has a lot of strength in his chart. He has so much strength in his chart. But when you have Jupiter in the 10th in Kritika, this makes you like it kind of makes you like a father figure to the world, it reminds me of Abraham because Abraham means father of nations. If you read in the Bible, that's what Abraham means. And Abraham has always been used to represent someone who is a very, very heavy masculine energy, but also very spiritual, right? Because Abraham was masculine, he was the father, but also that story exists from the Bible, right? So it's like it's a mixture. It means that he's a man's man, but it also means he was full of light and full of honor and full of courage and full of strength.